Alright, y'all, I'm here. I'm back with another review of Last Chance U Basketball Episode 2. Okay, so I'm going to not speed through this, but there's a lot to cover, or at least I have a lot of notes, so let's get to it. So this episode was really heavily based on Joe Hampton, okay? We'll kind of get to him the majority of this episode, but let's just kind of go through everything that happened, okay? So, we start off with one of the assistant coaches. He's at Venice Beach and he's watching other players play, and he's talking to one of his friends pretty much about KJ and just pretty much how talented he is. So that's kind of where we start off. So once we get after the intro, we see Coach Mosley. Now, as you guys know, or a lot of you guys should know, a lot of time coaches, not just in college, but I mean, not just in college, but even in like high school and stuff like that, a lot of time coaches, they do have to like teach a class. Like when I was in high school, the basketball coach teached like health and like some other like science classes or whatever the case may be. So Coach Mosley teaches a spin class, which I would love to go. I've always wanted to do a spin class. I just can't find like a good one, but I've always wanted to do a spin class, so that seems like that's fun. So then we get on to the game that they have for the week. So far, the first game that they have for the week, okay? And KJ is killing. Do you hear me? Killing this game, in this game in particular, okay? And so you got it. I think this episode, now that I think about it, it's kind of like a good side by side because you have two people who are very talented, KJ and Joe, which is kind of who the episode focuses on, but they both have two completely different like personalities. So KJ is a little bit more, like I'll talk about later, a little bit more relaxed and laid back, while Joe, he can be, but on the court he's really not. So in this game, Joe is pretty much getting upset because he feels like he's not getting the ball as much as he should. And at this time they are 18-1. That's what their record is currently. And they currently, after this game, they had the most consecutive wins by a men's basketball team. Now I don't know if that means within JUCO. They didn't say specifically like what that counts towards, but yeah. So after they are done, they win the game and everything like that. They go into the back, and I hear Deshaun like, yeah, we about to go lift some weights, and I'm like, y'all about to go lift some weights, and then Coach Mosley is like, nah, like you guys are good, not today. And then I realized y'all be weight training after y'all do a game. That's insanity. Like that is pure insanity. That you practice, right? You practice. Then you do a full out game. You win that game and you still do weight training. And I'm not saying that like in a bad way. I mean, I guess to some people that can be bad, but I feel like that probably really helps with like their strength and specifically like their stamina. Like that, I've never in my life heard of a team conditioning and doing training after they've won it at not even won. I don't care if they lost, but after fucking doing a full game, that's Coach Mosley is low key insane. God bless his heart. Like not in a bad way, but he's insane. But that's probably why these kids is as good as they are. Okay, but they didn't have to that night. So then we have, it's 42 days pretty much until the playoffs. Okay, so we got Coach Rob. Coach Rob is talking to us about a little bit, of his day and how he pretty much works 9 to 10 hour days. And what he does a lot outside of like setting up the locker room and stuff like that and presenting it in a way for the kids, for them in a way for them to be able to vision and imagine going to a D1 school. But he really helps the kids academically. He said that's where he kind of found like his niche at. The person he works with the most is KJ, because KJ, he kind of has a lot of trouble in school. But he did say about KJ is that KJ has a great work ethic. So he was like, I can tell KJ we need to be in here from 6 to 10. He will stay here from 6 to 10. And so, similar to what Coach Mosley said later on about Joe, I am the same way when it comes to people, like as far as needing help. If you're willing to actually put in the work, I have no problem helping you. And that's what I was kind of saying about my last video, about how I feel like a GPA doesn't really encompass everything, because you can have some people like KJ who's really trying his best, and some people it just doesn't come to them as easily as others. So yeah, so that's cool. So then we see We in Anaheim, California, okay? And KJ is with his daddy, and his daddy's fine to me, okay? He started playing at 3 years old. His father had him at 23. I appreciate the good representation of black fathers on this particular episode. I'm here for it. Black fathers are in their kids' lives. Don't let the media tell you otherwise. They are, okay? A lot of them aren't, but a lot of them are too at the same time, okay? So KJ talks about how his father was a really good influence on him, and then we meet KJ's mom, and KJ's mom pretty much describes him, like I said earlier, like he's really quiet, he's really humble, but you can tell that, like, just by the episode and a half by the time we got there, of looking at him, you could just tell he's really soft spoken. He gives me damn it, I cannot think of, but I wish I could think of one of the other guys, but he reminds me of one of the other guys from Last Chance U, the football one, who was like really, really, really like no, sorry, not from Last Chance U. If y'all watch Coach Snoop, yeah, it's a Coach Snoop or whatever. One of the kids that's on his team kind of had the same thing. Like, he was a bigger guy, but, and he could really bully niggas on a football field, but like, he really was just like a really, really timid and shy person. Although looking at him from the outside, you wouldn't think that. You would think he's out here bullying niggas, but no, niggas was bullying him, like, off the court and stuff, off the field. So that's what he kind of gives me. He talks about how he was always big, even as a kid, and how he would get in trouble a lot, playing basketball, because he would unintentionally like knock people over. I mean, look how big the damn man is. He's huge. Is he not going to knock people over? It's not on purpose or anything like that. So back to the academics thing, he's having trouble. The reason he didn't go to a D1 was simply because his grades were not good enough. So that's what they're pretty much trying to work on. But everyone says that he's a great guy. So, and he seems like it. He seems like it to me, okay? So then we have 40. How many days left, girl? We got 40 days left, okay? We got 40 days left until the playoffs, okay? So now we getting a little bit more about like the program, a little bit more about like the resources and stuff like that comes along with playing at a community college. So one of the things Coach Mosley talks about is the fact that they don't have the media hype like a lot of other places do. Although they're winning, and although they're like top in the state, because they're a community college, they're not gonna get the media recognition like a D1 school would, or a D2 school even possibly. There is just not gonna happen. So they have to pretty much try to keep their players still hyped, you know what I mean, and still ready to like work and do what they need to do. And then they also talked about, because their basket at the time was like messed up or whatever. I think it was too high, and they were saying how they didn't have the money, or it was going to take a while for them to come and fix it. And again, we go to see, I believe it was maybe the president, whoever of the school, pretty much saying how we pretty much have to cut the budget going towards athletic students, towards any of the athletic programs, because this is a community college. So we have to cut costs to make it affordable for people to go, that's understandable. I get that. That's exactly why a lot of times people don't really take community colleges like too seriously or anything like that, because the funding is so low a lot of times. But it helps save lives. Best to believe, it helps save lives. And if you are a high school student and you're watching this, for God's sake, please, and if you want to go to like a good, or like, I don't want to say good school, but big school, please, as someone who, I don't know why I grabbed my car keys, as someone who has been through it, please, for financial sake, unless you got parents who like got money, and they don't care about spending it, go to community college for 2 years, transfer out, and go to a bigger school. Financially, it will save you so much. I'm trying to tell you, please, I don't care, unless you want a scholarship. If you can, go to community college for 2 years and then go to the school you actually want to go to. I'm telling you, it will help you in a whole lot of ways. So yeah. So then it's practice, and we have what is his name? Steve Becker, who is the head coach of Cal State. I don't even know how you say that in a minute. Cal State something Hill, okay? He's the head coach there. So he's asking about Joe. And, one of the coaches is telling him, like, he's a really good player. He works really hard, but he really has a bad ass temper. He has a really badass temper, and so that's one of the things that we gotta kind of work on him with a lot. And so during this practice, of course, Joe is constantly getting frustrated, like he always is in all of these damn practices and games. And so Coach Mosley, I don't know, was it suicide that he had him doing? I don't know, but he had him running from one end of the court to the other. I don't think it was suicide, but he just had him running and he was timing him, and he pretty much was half assing it. He was not giving it his all. He was not, because he pretty much was giving him a timer like 10, 9, 8, and the nigga didn't care. He did not fucking care at all. And I just felt like, Joe, this is not a good look in front of a recruiter. Like, y'all, a lot of times y'all don't even be knowing that recruiters are there. So like, you always have to be on your game because you never know who's gonna come and visit and look at you. And first impressions are a bitch. Like it only really takes somebody one time. Like they can see that you did all of this great shit on film, but if they actually come to practice and see the way that you're working, or for Joe's part, like not fucking working, that could really be a point against you or a strike against you. They could not care because the thing with Joe is Joe already has so much going on that he doesn't need another reason for somebody to try to write him off. You know what I mean? So yeah. One of the coaches, they're talking to the head coach or whatever from Cal State, and he's telling him, he's like, like he's a 2-time felon, and it's like you got one more and you're done. And I'm like, oh, okay, explain that a little bit more, which we'll get to in a second. And so Joe ends up, after he does his run and stuff like that, and Deshaun is encouraging him like he's being a good captain that he is. Joe takes off his stuff and he goes in the back, and one of the coaches that's talking to the Cal State coach, he's like, yeah, he goes into the back and he yells and he screams or whatever the case may be. And so one of his teammates goes back there to go and talk to him because Joe was like putting all his stuff together. It's really raining hard as shit out here, y'all. But he goes to go and talk to Joe, and he's like, you can't leave, you still got to be here for us. And Joe's pretty much pissed because he feels like he's tired of being on the sideline and he's tired of not playing. Now, this is an issue that, like, I guess I noticed even with the football last chance you, is like a lot of these kids, they're coming from situations where they're probably the top dog at their school, or they're probably the top dog within their city, or maybe they could even be the top dog within their state. But the thing is, it's just where you are. Once you get around just as much talented people, so yeah, you the guy that's popping in Kansas City, but then there's another guy who in Louisville, he's the top guy in his city. So when you put those two together, you gonna see who really comes out. That's why a lot of times, and of course I'm talking to people who might not really know much about basketball, that's what, like, a lot of times when they put like really 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 big superstars, a lot of big superstars on one team, people are like, is this gonna work? For example, when James Harden just recently came to the Nets or whatever, a lot of people was like, I don't really know if that's gonna work because somebody has to take a step back. Y'all all, Kyrie, KD, and James Harden, y'all can't all share the ball. Like, y'all are all individually used to being that guy on y'all teams. James Harden was the guy for the Rockets. KD's always the fucking guy regardless. Kyrie was the guy previous to this, in the Celtics, and now with Blake Griffin coming on, people are really concerned about how is this all gonna pan out, and this kind of plays into that. And I feel like, at least you being in community college, it's a good way to kind of get you used to that. You're not always gonna be the guy. That's just the facts. There are sometimes people that are gonna be better than you. Those are just the facts of the matter. Now it's on how you deal with that. Are you gonna sit up there and sulk and say, I'm always on the sideline and da da da, or are you gonna do what you need to do to get off the sideline? You know what I mean? So I think that's part of Joe's problem. He gotta prove, show and prove, my guy, show and prove. But then he also said that he was mad because he said that he felt like the things that coaching him told him that he needs to work on, that's not what he was practicing. That part I can understand. So I was trying to give him a little leeway because I can understand that. Like, if you're telling me that I'm terrible at math, but then when I come to help you, but when I come to you for help, we are working on writing, that doesn't really make sense to me. So I can understand him from that perspective. Understandable from at time. Okay. So like I said, then we kind of delve a little bit more into Joe and his story, okay? So as I said on the last episode, y'all know that Joe tore, man, that man done tore everything. He's tore his, I think, what is it? Is it meniscus? That's what it's called? LCL. He done tore a couple things in his knee, both his senior year, I think, of high school, and I think his freshman year of college. And so, after Penn State, which is when he tore his knee and he got kicked out, he said he really didn't care. He came to California. He worked for 2 years. And he said during that time he was not hanging out with the right people. He ended up catching a case for, I don't know if it was burglary or assault or whatever, but he stole from somebody, and then he also tried to commit bank fraud. So he had two different cases out on him, and instead of going to court, he skipped court. Like, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying a lot of niggas skip court, and y'all need to just go to court because the law gonna catch your ass regardless. Go to court, okay? Go to court. And so he said after that, one day he was sitting watching TV and he seen one of his teammates, that he played with at Oak Hill on the Hornets, and that just kind of gave him inspiration to be like, damn, like if he could do it, then I can do it. And as a side note, just for a jokey joke, nigga, you don't want to be on the Hornets. I know you don't want to be on the Hornets, but I I get what he's saying though. I get just being in the league, period. So he said once he seen that, he gave Coach Mosley a call, and asked if he could come in. Now he said the week before he was actually supposed to start school, he got pulled over. And when he got pulled over and the cops ran his name, it said that he had a warrant out for his arrest for, like, I don't know, I guess a previous charge. So he ended up going to jail for 17 days, okay? Now he said originally he did not tell Mosley about any of this, but Coach Mosley did find out. And instead of him being upset and handling it like, I feel like a lot of the previous coaches that we've seen, except the one that was at Laney, he wrote a letter to the judge, telling him about how he's a good kid and how he's going to do this basketball thing. And that letter pretty much made it so that he didn't have to go to jail. He was supposed to do 2 years. And after that letter, he pretty much got out. And I also want to let y'all know, if y'all see my it's civil law, that's because, I'm kind of working on getting my law degree. But want y'all to know something. A good reference of character, especially in a court of law, to people it might not mean a lot, but it really does. Like, even like my boyfriend, the reason why he didn't even go to jail for what he did when he was young is because when he went to court, he had a whole bunch of people with him. When I mean a whole bunch, I mean family. Like, he had me, his grandma, his sister, his cousin. Like, and so when we did get there, and he was up there for his case and stuff, the judge literally said, he was like, well, I see you have a really huge, support system. He said a lot of people, they come in here, they don't have nobody. They have absolutely nobody. He said, so I feel like I can trust the fact that you have a good support system and they're gonna push you in the right direction. So I feel like that's what Joe's situation was. So yeah. So so also, Coach Mosley talks about how, and Coach Rob says how, regardless though of what Joe does, they're never gonna give up on Joe. And I'll get at that towards the very end, in my opinion, on how that works. Both of the coaches, they understand, I think, that he needs this opportunity. I think even Coach Rob said, like, he doesn't have anywhere to go. Like, if you cut him from this team because he was late, Joe has nowhere to go but down. And we refuse to sit up here and let to see that young man go down a bad road. So we're gonna keep working with him as much as possible. And it's funny because in his confessional, Joe was talking about how he's different and all of this, but they're doing his confessional with him talking about being different, but showing him, kind of, I guess, acting the same way that he said that he wouldn't anymore. So yeah. So then we have 30 days until the playoffs, okay? And we meet Dorothy, who is the academic advisor. I wish they had another academic advisor like they did in the other ones, because, like, those are my favorite. Like, that white woman that was at EMCC, she literally made me cry. Her and Ollie's relationship, top tier, like next level, made me really, really fucking cry. And made me even think about, like, possibly wanting to do something like that, because I see the way that she affects these young men's lives. Everything for me. Everything, 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 okay? So, yeah, we meet her, and, she pretty much tells us, she said between junior and senior year for these kids, that's when they be like, oh, shit, getting real. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it is in high school, too. You be all fun and games freshman and sophomore year. When that junior year hit, that's when it really hits you like, oh shit, I gotta start applying for schools. I gotta get out of here. That's when shit really gets real. That's why people tell you like the first 2 years of you being in school is really important because you don't want to get to your third and fourth and then you're trying to play catch up. You know what I mean? So yeah. So, but she does say though that number one, she thinks that Joe needs to pretty much let go of like the what ifs in life. Like, what if I would have did this? What if I would have did that? Then I would be there and I wouldn't be here. And he has to let that go if he wants to like try to move forward. She also says though that regardless of what, the junior senior year situation about people trying to amp it up, that the basketball kids, they have a really high GPA as an overall like group because the coach doesn't play no games. Like, y'all going to study hall, y'all gonna do y'all thing. So I think that's a nice different like type of pace because normally, like I said, on the last chance you for football, none of them kids was doing their work. One of the biggest problems in all of the schools was that nobody was doing their work. And at that that whole series of last chance you football literally to me just gave credence to what I always would say is that at least when I was in college, like the kids who was on the football team, even though our football team was trash and basketball team, they had to do the bare fucking minimum. Like they had to do the bare minimum to pass. They really didn't have to do much. All they really had to do is show up. And even if they didn't show up, they would get their coach to make an excuse. So I find it interesting and refreshing that these kids are actually like doing their work and they have a decent GPA because it shows it's possible if you put in the work, okay? And also if your coach and your team allows you that time to do so, because I know that they be working the athletes crazy. So then we got um oh, I also put in here real fast that Deshaun said he wants to play overseas, which I think is interesting because I never really hear like younger kids say that. Like I don't really hear college kids or kids in high school really talk about how they want to play overseas, which is extremely smart. People make a lot. Matter of fact, let me see. What's the average salary for basketball player overseas? They be making good ass fucking money. The average player can make anywhere from the lower end of 60K to 500,000 per season. Now, I know in comparison to the NBA, that's not nearly as much, but we come from the hood, y'all. Like they come from the hood, we come from the hood. $500,000 is a lot of money to us, okay? That ain't no small amount. And like he said, like he could literally go over there, play overseas, and then eventually come over and get drafted by the NBA. A lot of people do that. So I thought that was interesting. He said that. So now we have game day, right? In game day, it's Long Beach. They're going against Long Beach Vikings, so it's kind of like a rivalry local thing, okay? So we got a lot of notes here. Okay, so they was having a little bit of trouble, okay, because the Long Beach Vikings are a really good team. I don't know what number they were, but they were like really, really good, okay? And they had like one guy that was averaging like 32 and another that was averaging like 25, like some crazy ass fucking numbers, right? Putting up numbers like they are. So at first they were having it was a little bit of a slow start, okay? But then they put Joe in, and Joe did when he first came in. He was getting them buckets, and he was doing what he needed to do to put the team on his back. He was, okay. But then eventually it gets to the point where, they're not really feeding Joe the ball consistently. Like they're kind of giving it to KJ, they're giving it to this person, but he's not like the main person getting the ball. And so he's getting upset about it, okay? KJ went the fuck. That man, KJ Allen, is amazing. Like his athletic ability, and specifically for him to be such a big fucking man, he's amazing. He's a fucking amazing. The dunks that he was doing this episode, that layup that he did at the very end when it did like the Damian Lillard thing or the Kawhi thing where it kind of like bounced off and went towards the end a little bit, and then some way somehow some angel was like boop, and pushed it in. I said, come through KJ. KJ was killing this whole game, okay? Killing, okay? But Joe was starting to get upset because he was getting nonstop fouls pretty much left and right. And I'm not gonna lie, I do feel like the refs, this game in particular, they did him real dirty. Like some of the calls I feel like were fair, but I feel like a lot of the calls were just like pure bullshit, and they weren't really calling like any fouls for him. However, However, oh, and he also said, Joe, he said he doesn't like how they was pretty much trying to portray him as a bully, like on the court, which I can understand that being frustrated. I get that. However, this is the whole thing about it. See, this is why you're here, so that you can learn how to control your anger, because you think you're the only person that's going through that. Like, if you was to get to the NBA, do you know how many people get picked on? Like, as far as like being on the court and stuff like that, people always say that like the Lakers don't call a game fair at all. Like the Lakers ref, they don't call no type of games fair if you play at the Staples Center, because they too pro they team. They might say that they not, but they too pro they team. They too pro Lakers. They not about to call shit on LeBron. Like there's just, but then there's certain people who will always get a fucking, call. So you have to learn how to pretty much manage your anger, because that's not gonna change as you get up higher and higher and higher. Yes, the refs will be better and you'll have technology, but that doesn't absolve you from possibly being the person that the refs want to fuck with that day. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my time to make sure I got enough time to finish talking. So yeah, so like I said, I have KJ. I got in my notes, KJ gonna track you down. Like I said, KJ, but he don't stop. He's not gonna let you just, oh, okay, well, I see that there's nobody at the end of the court, so I'm just gonna let him get this layup and let him get this down. No, he's gonna track you down and he's gonna take the fucking ball. Shout out to KJ again. Okay, then Malik comes in, and Malik did really, really well when he came in. He did really well. So then we have Joe who comes back in, but they just keep fouling him left and right. He ends up getting like his fourth personal foul. And again, I do feel like they was picking with him. But once he get his fourth personal foul, he just gets frustrated. He's like, I'm about to foul out on purpose. I'm about to foul out on purpose. And at this point, this man is not even trying. Like, this man is literally just standing on the court like this, walking, walking. But he's not trying at all, like at all. So Coach Mosley ends up pulling him out, putting Malik back in, and then that's when we see the intro that we did of the beginning of the series, which is him going into the back and slamming stuff and going all fucking crazy, okay? The way they end the game, they end up winning the game. They won 83-68. That was their 15th game that they won in a row. And again, Joe was really upset. We see him in his confessional, and he's again talking about how he's really upset for his past decisions. But I also want to say this to Joe. I know Joe ain't watching, but this is in case Joe is watching. Sir, a lot of that stuff wasn't necessarily in your control. You could not control the fact that both of your knees tore when they did. Now, some people say, "Oh, well, you could," but you really can't. That shit happens all the time. Those two things are nothing that you could have controlled. Now, yes, you had more control what you did after that, but again, you're young. You're very young, and you don't really seem like you have a whole lot of guidance. And I can understand how you can fall into a deep depression after literally losing, or what you think is losing, your dream. But again, you have to give yourself the grace, and that'll happen as you get older, and you'll be able to look back and say you wish you gave yourself grace. You got to give yourself the grace and the time to fuck up, pretty much. You know what I mean? You're not going to be perfect. So I just wish Joe would like take that burden off, and kind of like what the academic advisor was saying, don't let your past and your what ifs, don't let that hold you back, because you will literally, don't be one of those people who just want to sit around and be like, but if I would have, because we're not there no more. We're here now. So take advantage of what you have now going forward, and don't be so beholden to the past. You know what I mean? But and shout out to them for ending on don't think about it too much. Last time was on the outro. I thought that was cute, like, because that's what he said, and it was the outro. I thought that was cute. But y'all get in the comments, tell me what y'all think. I'll be back with episode 3. I don't know, probably tomorrow or the day after. I'm out. Bye.